Hello, everybody. This is Amber. I am one of the lead organizers of WordPress Accessibility Day, and I am super excited to be here with some of our friends from Yoast, who are a gold sponsor of this year's WordPress Accessibility Day conference. We are going to be talking about accessibility, of course, because that's what we love to do. And we will also be talking about how to make websites easier for content creators, how to make them easier for people who are reading them, whether they're reading as a language learner or somebody with a reading disability or just an average person who wants to be able to easily understand and consume content. So I am super excited to have everyone here from Yoast with us. Do you want to go around and introduce yourselves and share your roles at Yoast?
Sure, I can start. Hello, Amber. Hello, everybody. Thank you for having us in this interview, and thank you for organizing WordPress Accessibility Day. I'm Andrea Fercia. I'm a web accessibility specialist, contributing to WordPress since 10 years now. I'm a co-committer, a member of the accessibility team in WordPress, and I'm fully sponsored by Yoast to contribute to WordPress. Agnieszka.
Hi, I'm Agnieszka Szuba, and I'm a researcher and a developer at Yoast. I work in the team that's responsible for the content analysis, so the SEO analysis, readability, and also inclusive language. And yeah, happy to be here.
Okay, and my name is Kai van Gunsven, and I have been UX designer at Yoast for almost 7 years now. I'm part of the product team, and my main focus is designing for Yoast SEO, which is our WordPress plugin and also a Shopify app. And my primary task is to identify stakeholders' wishes and requirements and translate them into beautiful, of course, accessible and user-friendly user experience that fit the Yoast brand. And next to that, I'm also the designer responsible for our own Yoast UI library, which is publicly accessible as well on ui-library.yoast.com. And the Yoast UI library is a React component library that provides an interactive overview of all our available components and examples on how we use them in our Yoast interfaces.
Is that library based on Tailwind? Do I remember that? Or inspired by Tailwind?
Yes, that's right. We use Tailwind UI as a basis, and yeah, wherever we felt we needed to tweak some components, we did that. But yeah, we wanted to use a strong foundation on an existing framework. So with Tailwind UI and Headless UI are involved. Yeah.
That's great. Well, I know we are definitely going to be talking about UX and design and accessibility a little bit more. But I could throw this to any of you. I'm curious if you were to describe Yoast, the company, to someone new to WordPress, how would you describe the products and the company?
Well, Yoast is a company focused on helping website owners rank higher in search engines like Google, allowing them to receive more traffic from search engines. And to achieve high ranking on Google, you need to optimize your site for search engines, and that process is called search engine optimization or SEO. And at Yoast, we believe SEO should be accessible to everyone, creating equal chances for everyone in the search results. And WordPress aims to democratize publishing through open source software, and Yoast aligns with this mission and yeah, as a sort of an extension of WordPress. So Yoast believes that achieving this mission also requires Yoast SEO because true democratization is not possible uh, if only a few can rank high in search engines. So large companies often dominate search results due to significant marketing budgets. Um, but Yoast's plugins and expertise empower also small website owners and entrepreneurs, for example, to compete with the large companies. Yeah, so we believe that everyone should be able to create and manage a successful website, regardless of technical skills. So we also try to simplify SEO and make it more accessible to everyone. So, uh, yeah, we're dedicated to providing support and resources to help the users succeed with their website. We have an SEO blog, for example, with a lot of useful articles, tips, and tricks on how to use Yoast SEO. We have a Yoast SEO Academy where we offer online SEO training and courses, for example. So yeah, and by continuous improvement and staying up to date with SEO best practices, we ensure that our users always have the best tools available to optimize their site for search engines.
Yeah. I feel like when I was first starting a very long time ago with blogging and building websites, the Yoast tool was one of the primary ways that I started learning about SEO and figuring out. I didn't know what until I installed it. I'd never heard of like a meta title or meta description or any of these things. And having the little traffic light, the red, green, yellow was super helpful for me in trying to figure out, is my content good content? So
Yeah,
I
SEO can
personally
be
have found your tools wonderful and very educational.
Thank
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So go
yeah.
ahead,
Just
Andrea.
if I can add something very quickly, the motto of the company is SEO for everyone, meaning that,
Mm-hmm.
as Kai mentioned, one of the focuses of the company has always been democratizing and make it accessible for everyone. So it's not just the product, the plugin, it's also the huge amount of documentation, technical articles that are published and accessible to everyone for free. So it's really about democratizing SEO.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. We've in past years, Yoast has also sponsored WordPress Accessibility Day. You all have been a long-term sponsor, which we very much appreciate. And we've had conversations during some of these live streams about how there is such an overlap between SEO,
Yeah.
readability, which is just good content practices, and accessibility. And there's a lot of accessibility fixes that can enhance a website's SEO. And there's a lot of SEO enhancements that incidentally, I guess, fix accessibility. Like website owners might just think they're working on SEO, but they're actually fixing the accessibility. And I don't know if any of you have any thoughts about that you want to share, like where that overlap is for people who are not, or some specific examples for people who are not as familiar.
Well, absolutely. SEO and accessibility, web accessibility overlap in many parts because SEO is about content, making content understandable and readable not only by humans, but also by machines. So the content must be clean, understandable, and structured. By structured, I mean semantic. For example, the role of headings in SEO is as important as in web accessibility. Structured content and semantics are fundamental part of web accessibility and SEO. Alternative text for images is extremely important for accessibility and SEO, and all the things related to content. Of course, SEO focuses on the content on the front end. It's not meant for the administrative part of a publishing platform like WordPress. It's for the front end. So there's also another side of web accessibility, which is not just about the content on the front end, but also about making the administrative interface, user interface, accessible and usable by everyone. So there is a part where they overlap totally, and that's also the reason why Yoast has always been focused on accessibility.
Mm-hmm. Agnesha, do you have anything that you would add on that with the overlap between
Yeah.
SEO and readability and
Yeah, I
accessibility?
think readability is a great example of the overlap, because it is good for SEO, because if your content is readable, people are more likely to stay on the page and engage with your content, which affects the ranking. And but it also makes your content more accessible to everyone, regardless of disability or any factor. Like, people's attention is really like a precious resource. So if your content is easy to read and people can have a quick overview of what your page is about, then it helps everyone, but also especially, for example, for non-native speakers, and as well as people with various disabilities. So yeah.
So Yoast is, as we've talked about before, both on the content front and providing wonderful free plugins and free trainings, in addition to the paid plugins and paid trainings, a significant contributor to the WordPress community as a whole. Beyond that, they sponsor lots of WordCamps. I don't even know if it's like almost every WordCamp that I've been to. I think I've seen Yoast sponsoring. They offer financial support to help underrepresented speakers attend WordPress. And of course, they sponsor contributors like you, Andrea, to work full-time on WordPress. And you work on, you mentioned earlier, the accessibility team and the core team. And I'm wondering if you could tell us a little bit what it's like to be a full-time contributor to WordPress.
It's, first of all, to me, a responsibility. Rather than being technical. Coding is certainly an important part of any contribution to an open source software, but it's more about responsibility to me, and it's like an ethical commitment to make the web accessible for everyone. I was already involved in web accessibility when I joined Yoast. I was already contributing to WordPress, and I was already co-committer. I was contributing since 2 years already before joining Yoast. I'm extremely grateful that that they are sponsoring me now. But I mean, my involvement started as a volunteer, like many others in WordPress.
How did you go from being a volunteer to sponsored by Yoast?
It was a series of lucky events, I would say. I was already collaborating with the accessibility team in WordPress. And at some point in 2015, I decided to attend WordCamp US. It was in Philadelphia that year, together with Rian Ritfeld. She is another well-known accessibility specialist. Yeah, we attended WordCamp US, and that was the first time I met with the Yoast crew.
I think I remember Yoast the human spoke. That I think I was at that WordCamp too. Yoast the human spoke, but I also remember they gave out little Lego swag.
Yes, Lego is one more focus of the company. Let's say there's a huge passion for Lego. Yeah. And so I joined. I met with the Yoast crew. They asked me to try to collaborate. After 3 months, we started collaborating, and then the thing evolved, and I'm full sponsor. My full time is sponsored to contribute to WordPress. So I started, a few months after WordCamp US 2000.
Yeah. So I'm curious if you have any advice for anyone who is thinking about starting to contribute to WordPress, or maybe even getting involved with the accessibility team, because I know on the accessibility team, which I also participate in, we're always hoping for more contributors, and you can never have enough. Do you have any tips for anyone who is thinking about getting involved on the team?
Well, I can tell what worked for me. So my first actual contribution to WordPress was in 2014, but before that, I was observing the project for a long time. So I was following the development chat, the meetings on Slack. At that time, uh, all the chat happened on IRC because Slack wasn't around yet.
Mhm.
So what I would recommend is to follow and observe the project, observe the teams, observe the meetings for as long as you feel comfortable to start uh, getting involved. If you can choose a niche where your contribution can have more impact. For me,
Mhm.
it was easy because I was already involved in web accessibility. So it was pretty natural to join the accessibility team. But for other contributors who may be more specialized in PHP or other stuff, choose a niche of the project and try to be impactful on that. That's
Yeah.
We
Uh,
also organize contributor days at Yoast that are open to everyone who wants to, try contributing. We have different tables that you can join, so you can try out. We have always several different tables. I think that's a nice option if someone is new to contributing or not new. You can always join. We have one coming up in about 2 weeks, I think.
are those in person at the Yoast office, or are they virtual or hybrid?
They're hybrids.
So you could join from anywhere in the world?
Yeah.
How would somebody go or find out about that contributor day? Do you have a link by any chance?
Um,
I'm putting you on the spot.
I don't actually know.
Okay. Well, maybe we can try and find one later and we can post it in the comments with the
sure.
video. If
Yeah.
anyone is interested in joining the Yoast Contributor Day, which is in 2 weeks. And it's open to even first-time contributors, I'm assuming?
Yes, to anyone.
Great. Oh, awesome. It looks like Kai is fast with the Google searching. I will post this in the chat that I think will go out to YouTube. So that's on the YouTube. If you're watching it somewhere else on Twitter or LinkedIn, you might need to go look at the YouTube chat log in order to get that URL. Or it looks like you can go to yoast.com/about-us/events. I'm hoping that me cutting off part of that URL still results in a working URL. And that will get you to the Yoast Contributor Day 2024 October edition blog post. So as a last question before I want to flip away from code for just a little bit, Andrea, I'm curious, what are some of the common problems that you see when you're doing accessibility remediation in WordPress and that you would like devs to watch out for?
Well, from a technical perspective, speaking about remediation, the most common problem I see is about labeling interactive controls.
Wait, sorry, say that
It's
again. I didn't catch that. Doing what with
la-
interactive controls?
labeling interactive
Oh,
controls,
labeling. Yeah.
forms, inputs, labeling controls,
So like,
form elements, the buttons, etc. It's something that is often missed. Also, the Gutenberg component have some issues with that. We should make sure that all components actually require a label, because that's often missed. But I would say that's the technical part and just one of the technical issues. The most common barrier I see in the industry overall, in the industry is a lack of knowledge of web accessibility, a lack of knowledge of the user needs, and a lack of knowledge of how assistive technologies work. Uh,
mm-hmm.
technical problem can be solved, but that's at a remediation step, which is the last step.
It's always more expensive and more
And
time
it's more
consuming to
expensive.
fix
Exactly.
problems than to not create them in the first place.
Instead, the lack of knowledge is about the initial phase of the project where design happens. And most problems should be solved since the beginning in the design phase. That's a switch our industry has to do yet.
Yeah. So I think that is a really perfect segue, Kai. A lot of people do have this misconception, right? Where they think only developers need to know about accessibility. I'm curious from your perspective as somebody who specializes in user experience and design, what kind of things are you thinking about from an accessibility perspective when you're creating designs or planning out user flows?
Yeah, well, in my designs, I always, in the first place, I always strive to meet accessibility standards, such as the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. Just to name a few examples of that, for example, color contrast is something we always check if we introduce new colors to see if the foreground color has enough sufficient contrast on a certain background color. When we choose fonts, for example, we also look at what fonts are accessible also for people with dyslexia, for example, font sizes, line length, line height. We always make sure to provide clear labels and instructions when content requires user input, for example. Yeah, also another example is I always try to avoid using color as the only visual indicator, for example. So instead, I provide alternative ways to convey information, such as text, icons, so that users with color vision deficiencies, for example, can perceive and interact with content effectively as well. Yeah, so I would say things like that. And when working on our Yoast UI library, which I just mentioned, I often collaborate with developers as well to build new UI components. And yeah, when we do this, we also take accessibility into account. For example, we incorporate keyboard navigation and screen reader compatibility into all of our components. So yeah, these are the first things that come to mind.
Yeah, there is a funny story about the traffic lights in the plugin, right, Kai? Because a few years ago, they used to be made only of colors. So it was really a traffic light with red, yellow, and green colors. We did change it. Now
do they have different shapes now?
Yeah, now they still use colors, but they also have a shape, which are
we also
little
use
faces.
The smileys and also labels as well, if it's a good score or if you need improvement.
Yeah,
so
because red-green color blindness is actually the most common form of color blindness. So if you're only using green to say it's good, somebody might not actually know if it is good. So that's why you added like the happy face.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And also, I mean, it gives everyone a little smile when they look at it, right?
Yeah.
There is a part of accessibility that fascinates me, and it's about different cultural backgrounds. Colors can be problematic for people with color perception impairments, but also color can have different meanings in different cultures. So we shouldn't assume that red means danger.
Stop, yeah.
All countries and all cultures, or that green means okay. For example, white and black in China have completely different meanings compared to the Western countries.
You don't wear white for a wedding in China, right? But in a lot of Western cultures, that's what you would wear. It is interesting to think about that. I feel like that ties a little bit into what you all have been doing with the exclusive language feature, which is maybe about a year and a half old. Am I about right on that?
Yeah, I think almost 2 years.
Yeah. So for someone who hasn't seen this, because I think you have to toggle it on, it's not on by default, which I highly recommend going and toggling that on. And it's in the free plugin. Can you explain what that feature is and how you're working on this like cultural representations and helping to educate people on inclusive language?
Yeah, sure. So how it works is that it highlights phrases that are non-inclusive or potentially non-inclusive. And there are different categories of non-inclusive language. So there's culture and ethnicity, race, but also disability, gender, sexual orientation, class, and maybe something else, age.
I think I've seen like age, yeah, where I've written something like the elderly, and it's like, hey, maybe you want to think of a different term.
Yeah. And yeah, so the inclusive language feature, it's looks for these potentially non-inclusive phrases and highlights them, and also provides alternatives that are more inclusive. Yeah, that's basically how it works.
And I mean, again, it's interesting how all of these things, they all wrap up into having just a really nice user experience that makes people want to stay on the site and continue engaging with the site. So I'm curious, going back a little bit to the design. Um, is there anything that you feel like as a plugin company you think about accessible design or user experience that's a little bit different from how maybe just a website developer might do? Are there extra things that you have to take in consideration that you might recommend other WordPress plugin developers start thinking about?
Well, yeah, in the case of Yoast SEO for WordPress, I would say a plugin like that is for a plugin like that, the focus is, I think, more on functionality, unlike websites that often primarily focus on content presentation. Plugins often involve more complex interactions, I think, and more like, yeah, in terms of functionality. So therefore, for Yoast SEO, we need to ensure that all interactive elements such as forms, buttons, toggles, other settings are all keyboard navigatable and screen reader friendly, at least. And also, if you build a plugin, yeah, you have to integrate on a certain platform. So in this case, it would be integration with WordPress. So yeah, since Yoast SEO is built to work within the WordPress environment, we need to ensure that the plugin adheres to WordPress's accessibility standards as well. Yeah, and then yeah, you have, of course, user context. So plugins often integrate into various themes and environments. So we need to ensure that our accessibility features work seamlessly across different setups. Yeah, and of course, documentation and support. So yeah, we strive to provide accessible documentation that explains how to use the plugin effectively. This includes tutorials, FAQs, video content that adhere to accessibility guidelines, making it easier for users of all abilities to get the most out of Yoast SEO.
Yeah, documentation. That's an interesting thing that I think sometimes we don't think about, that maybe even agencies could probably do a little bit more of if they're thinking about handing off the websites they've built to their clients, and really thinking about how do you create really clear instructions that anyone can access that explain in an obvious way how to use a feature or a functionality or edit something on a website, if we're talking about the case of an agency.
Yeah.
So that's a really good
Yes.
point. I appreciate you brought that up. So,
Okay.
yeah. So One of the things that we talked about earlier, of course, is you all have all these training courses. I know you put out a new one recently, the Yoast AI for SEO course. I was wondering if one of you might be willing to share some details about that course, because everyone's still super interested in AI, and I'm curious how Yoast is thinking about AI and SEO.
Yeah, definitely. So, yeah, the course has a lot of useful information from like what is AI and generative AI specifically, how does it work, how it impacts the web and SEO and search engines, and how you can use it to help you with SEO, for example, with keyword research or content creation. We also discuss ethical challenges with AI. Yeah, so I would definitely recommend the course.
Yeah, that's great. Is there anything else that is new or exciting at Yoast that you can tease for us? I always I get you on and I say, we'll pretend that we don't see that there's 64 people watching us right now. Hello to everyone watching us. It's just us. I won't tell anyone. What secrets can you tell us about what's coming up at Yoast?
Well, on the topic of AI, we are working on more AI features. Recently, we released a few AI features, and today we also added our first feature to Yoast SEO for Shopify. So now it's not only in WordPress. So AI is something we are focusing on right now, and of course, always improving the existing features. We always tweak the inclusive language analysis, for example, or the readability analysis, and continuously improve it.
Mm-hmm. How many languages can you test for readability in right now? Do you know?
So it's about 20 or a bit more than 20. So in about 20 languages, you will get readability feedback, which is specific to your language.
That is really fabulous. Yeah. I personally, I've only been able to figure out the English, so I was very impressed at Yoast and how well you all have extended the plugin to all the so many different languages. Um, so of course, we're here today, as much as we love talking about accessibility and Yoast, because we want to remind everyone that WordPress Accessibility Day is happening in 1 week, just about 1 week and 1 day. It'll be next week, starting on Wednesday, and it is free to register. Anyone can register to attend if you go to 2024.wpaccessibility.day. And of course, if you missed the beginning, we did mention that Yoast is a gold sponsor of WordPress Accessibility Day, which is super important because it helps us to provide the live captions, the sign language interpretation that we will have at the event, cover the cost of our Zoom webinars, which is not inexpensive when you're going to have thousands of people there. But so please go register if you have not. I'm curious if you all have had a chance to look at the schedule and if there are any sessions that sound exciting to you that we could tease for our viewers.
I'm very interested in the one about how to create websites that are accessible to neurodivergent people.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I know less about that than, for example, like accessibility for people with visual impairments or hearing impairments. So I'm curious to learn about that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I found a talk about how to combine web content accessibility guidelines with trendy web design. Because also personally, for me, one of the biggest challenges in designing with accessibility in mind is balancing aesthetics and functionality. So often, visually appealing designs can conflict with accessibility guidelines. And I always try my best to find a compromise that is both beautiful and accessible. So to give an example, for example, color contrast. A lot of designers tend to use light gray text on a white background to have an elegant or minimalistic look. But for users with visual impairments, this choice could make the content nearly unreadable. So yeah, I find it interesting to see and maybe to learn in the talk what the real expectations are of web content accessibility guidelines and how you can still create trendy designs while still applying the guidelines.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think both of those are going to be very interesting. And the thing I will call out about that trendy one, which is it's at 3:00 UTC, which for me is 10 p.m. Chicago, US Central Time. And it's called Accessible Design WCAG or Trendy, no WCAG and Trendy. That speaker, Zolt, is actually going to be providing a full transcript in his native language as well for his talk. So that will be available if you tune in. And I thought I remembered what it was, what his native language is, but he's in Europe. Let me see if I
I
can
think
find it real quick.
I thought he was from Hungary.
Yes, Hungarian. I think he's
Yeah,
going to provide a Hungarian
cool.
transcript for his talk as well, which is a whole nother level of accessibility and something that we've been trying to do with some of our talks from 2023. If people go back and look at the archive site, we have been beginning to translate some of them into different languages. Andrea, is there any sessions that jumped out to you?
Oh yes, the one that Agnieszka mentioned is very interesting because all the part about cognitive impairments and neurodiversity is maybe one of the less explored part of accessibility. So it's a good time to learn something about it. And I would also recommend the one about the user survey. So unlocking digital access insights from a community-driven survey, because starting from users is always the best approach to not only accessibility but to web design. And we have a real need of data and user testing. So I'm pretty curious to look at the survey.
Yeah. No, I think for anyone who is interested in user testing, that definitely will be another one. That one's at 0 UTC or 7 p.m. US Central Time. And then the one that we had called out at the beginning, I'm trying to see if I can find it where it was. I lost it. But the neurodivergence one is at 2:00 UTC or 9 p.m. US Central Time for people. But we have WordPress Accessibility Day has 24 phenomenal talks that are going to run all 24 hours. Obviously, you might not want to sit there all day. If you do, and you want to try and stay up all night with some extra coffee or caffeine of your choice, you can do that. But otherwise, they will all be recorded after the fact. But please go register again at 2024.wpaccessibility.day. It is totally free to register thanks to our wonderful sponsors like Yoast and the many other companies that are supporting the event. Also, while you are there, make sure that you go visit Yoast's sponsor page. They are giving out some swag and some discounts on Yoast Premium, only exclusively for people who are registered to attend WordPress Accessibility Day. So do not miss that as well. I'm going to wrap us up here, but I'm curious if you all could just share how people can get in touch with you, where's the best place to go to learn about things Yoast is up to, and if they wanted to follow you or Yoast on social media, the best place to do that.
Well, on the website, we have an events calendar with all upcoming events we'll be attending. So yeah, visiting one of these events would be a way to get in touch. Yeah, we're also active on Twitter or X. Yeah, you can also reach out via LinkedIn. if you, yeah.
And I'll put
Yeah,
that up here just for anyone who's not sure on the spelling.
Mhm.
Yoast is YOAST.com.
Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you all so much for joining us. Thank you again for being a sponsor of WordPress Accessibility Day. We very much appreciate it and value your incredible contributions to the community, even beyond WordPress Accessibility Day. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having us, Amber.
Thank you so much.
For